Okay, now it's going. Okay, so we should be live.
Hello, people of the world.
Bob, what do you use for editing? Use Mac or PC?
We're all Mac, and we all record locally, and then send the tracks to David, and he drops them into Logic.
Oh, okay, nice. All right, you guys see the new $5,000 iMac Pro?
Yeah.
Is that thing insane or what?
It's 18 core or something.
18 core, up, I don't know how many hundred gigs of RAM it can take. It's insane.
Yeah.
A little rich for my blood, though.
Yeah. And that's not even their top of the line machine that they're going to come out with next year. That's
really?
Just like a place. Yeah, it's a placeholder.
Jeez, that's crazy. $5,000, and that's like, that's not like, then you got to add a couple more things, throw in a little bit more RAM, upgrade. That's like base price. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're ready to roll. Make sure everything looks good. Let's do a show.
Welcome to Wood Talk. Now here are three guys who think true grit starts at 220. Mark, Shannon, and Matt.
All right, it's Wood Talk number 389 for June 12th, 2017. On today's show, we're talking about, is SketchUp for sissies? That's a great question, isn't it? It says a lot about the person who asked it. Moving a shop, blending 3D printing and fine woodworking, and do Matt and Mark feel inferior because they don't mess with electronics like Bob Claggett does? All that and a bunch more good stuff. Obviously, today's show is going to be very interesting. But before we get into it, let's thank some individuals who helped us out over at Patreon. It's patreon.com/woodtalk if you want to help out too and have your name mentioned at the top of the show. Karel Korv, Mike Bomer, Roberto Barrera, Joseph Van Deventer, Brian Stainfield, and Alan Barnes. So thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate your support. And if you want to help out too, again, that's patreon.com/woodtalk. And on today's show, we have a special guest because Shannon is busy doing some crap that's apparently more important than me and Matt here. And we brought in not just someone to substitute, but a pretty heavy hitter that, frankly, once he's gone, we're going to be like, oh, Shannon. It's like... Once you have a taste of like a really good beer and then you go back to Bud Light and you're like, what was I drinking?
Shannon's the Bud Light of woodworkers.
Shannon's our Bud Light.
Oh, poor guy.
Anyway, it is Bob Claggett from I Like to Make Stuff and Making It, and glad to have you here, Bob. Thanks for filling in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah, we put you to work too. This is not an interview show. This is like you're doing what you normally do for less money and probably even a smaller audience. So there you go.
Oh, right. Well, I'm less qualified to be here than I am on my own show. So how about that?
There you go. Okay, perfect. So let's get into what's on the bench. We'll throw it to Bob. He's the guest on the show. Let him go first. What are you working on these days?
Working on a couple of things. I'm about to start moving, so that's been like I'm in full sprint to try to get some stuff done to get it out of the way before I pack everything up.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you know how that is. So,
Lots of fun.
I just made a bathroom light, like just a simple wood fixture to put on the wall to kind of clean up the bathroom before we leave the house. And then I'm making an auto creeper, just to slide underneath the car. So nobody seems to know the word creeper in that context.
You know what's funny? I'm like, I was about to ask you, what the heck is that? I'm not a car guy. So
Yeah.
like,
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have known the term. I just had to look it up. But it's like, when mechanics go underneath the car, they lay on a really low rolling cart.
yeah,
So that they can get as low to the ground, and they call it a mechanics creeper or an auto creeper.
that makes sense.
So yeah, so I'm gonna play with that a little bit in the video. Put some like Minecraft creepers in there and stuff like that.
Oh,
'Cause that's
sweet.
what either half of the audience thinks it's Minecraft or they think it's just weirdos. So,
Right. Guys hanging outside, kids' schools and things like that.
yeah.
Now,
Exactly.
from the context of stuff you make, auto and auto creeper to me sounds like automatic creeper instead of like automotive.
Oh.
So I was thinking like,
Hmm.
you just set on it and it just
It
rolls
just
underneath the car.
scoots. Yeah,
I may have time to add that.
you should. Get a little motor on there. I actually thought Auto Creeper was one of Matt's signature wrestling moves in high school. No? Okay, maybe not. But that sounds cool, man. That's the thing I love about Bob's work. If you guys aren't familiar at this point, he gets his hands into a lot of different things, and we'll touch on that. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, that is one of the questions that came in. Referring to how many things Bob sort of gets his hands into and incorporates into his projects, which is really really cool stuff. For me, I am batching out some chair parts still, but today it's always a great day when I could fire up the multi-router. It's just one of those tools that I knew one day I would have because I saw David Marks use it, and it doesn't matter that like other things have come out since then that might be better, or might be even cheaper. It doesn't matter. That was a goal. I eventually reached it and bought it, and I think I've used it like 4 times because I don't like to pull it out too much on the show. But this is specifically for the guild. We're showing how I would batch this out. Like if I had to get these 6 chairs done for a client in a certain amount of time without decreasing my quality, what would I do? And that's what I'm using the multi-router for. So like the amount of time it took me to set up and do 2 legs before for the prototype, I probably in a fraction of the time, maybe 5% of that time, got like 10 of them done. Well, 5 chairs, 2 pairs of legs each. So 10 total legs in that time. And they're all dead on perfect. They're all exactly what they need to be, the exact same depth. It's just the repeatability on that thing is insane. So always a good day when the multi-router comes out. Matt, why don't you have one?
I'm not familiar with that tool, and I'm looking at it now. That's crazy.
Okay, yeah. So, and I mentioned it, assuming people do know, so I'm glad you mentioned something. It's basically a flat plate. You mount your work on top of it, and it just basically moves in 3 axes, and you've got a router mounted sideways. If anyone has heard of or seen, which you might be more familiar with, is the Panther router. All right, so similar concept in the positioning of the work with relation to the tool itself. But this, I think, is a little bit simpler in terms of just moving on these linear bearings. And the great thing about it is if you've got like the whole system just really maxed out and you've got the pneumatic clamps in place, it's just a dream. Like one of the things with any system that you clamp down, people don't realize there's a little bit of variability with how you clamp a workpiece down. So if you aren't applying consistent pressure each and every time, you could very well actually move the part slightly. So these little pneumatic clamps, man, you just turn the thing, they go whoosh, and hold it down, same pressure every time. It's one of the most fun tools that I've ever used. I just don't get to use it that often, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's it for me. Matt, what do you got going on?
Well, let me check the notes.
What did I write there?
What did I write like 10 minutes ago? Oh,
Wrote Bob a huge check. Oh, that's cool.
Oh,
Hey, there you go. Well, we got to do something to get you on the show.
Physically huge. It was not numerically huge.
Yeah, well, it's actually Matt donating his portion of the Patreon funds this month. So.
Oh, good. Yeah, you'll be
You're so
swimming in it,
nice.
Bob. Just swimming.
Swimming in nickels.
Time to go to the penny slots, baby.
So I finished up a porch bed swing thing. So kind of interestingly, like when I transitioned to doing the stuff for a living and doing content full time, one of the things that like drove me towards that realm was the fact that I could make whatever I wanted, and I wasn't making commission work, doing work for other people. Well, okay, I'm gonna throw my wife under the bus here, but I feel justified because you're so nice to her last week.
Okay, that's a good idea though. Let's.
It's still a bad idea. It's still a bad idea.
I don't know. I like it.
Doesn't listen to the show.
I like
unless
conflict.
One of you listeners tell her to. Don't do it. I will not share these stories ever again. If you do it, don't ruin this for me.
Okay.
So we were at a wedding about 18 months ago, and we met this couple there, and they were talking about how they wanted this like bed swing thing for their porch, and Lindsay was like, "You should just do it. It'll take like a weekend to make it, and you can make it a few bucks." So I'm like, I was kind of rolling back and forth. And they're like, "We'll give you a deposit right now on the spot for the materials." I'm like, okay, fine, maybe I'll think about it. So that was November of 2015. And like a year went by, and it's like another like 6 months. And now it's like June, almost over a year and a half later. I'm like, oh crap, I gotta make this thing still. And the problem I have with it is it could have taken me just a weekend, but I don't make weekend projects. Like that's the whole point. Is like that's not something I want to make. I want to make something sweet that look cool, that uses really nice materials, blah 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 blah. So the whole time that I was procrastinating on this is because I had zero interest in doing it because I knew it wasn't something I was interested in. And I had to find that like design or that element. I had to get excited about it.
Yeah.
So I finally got excited. I got excited about it, and also excited about like, holy crap, it's been this long already. These people are gonna kill me. So
that's called guilt. That's not excitement.
So wait, they weren't
guilt.
bugging you or anything? Like, hey, we gave you some money?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I was like, it's been yes, they've been bugging me for a while. And I was doing it for free at this point. Like I got the material deposit, that's fine. I'm just gonna give it to them. I don't care anymore. It's gonna be a cool piece of content for my channel. That's what I care about. So At least I got it into it finally, but I don't do commission work.
So I'm curious, is the fact that it's content the thing that made it worthwhile that got you excited, or is there some design element?
So when they wanted me to do it, they're like, they basically gave me free reign to the whole design of it, and I didn't. Every single time I didn't do a whole lot. I didn't jump into a whole lot, but I went to go look on the internet and kind of come up with some design ideas. I didn't find anything I really liked, and I just didn't get excited by anything I saw, and I couldn't come up with anything decent. And then, like you said, the guilt finally hit, and that motivated me to actually get it done. So I came up with a design that I have now, which I'm pretty happy with. It's a pretty unique design. It has some interesting elements that I think will be interesting to see how I accomplish some of that, the angled joinery with the curves in there and how the whole thing is constructed. I think it's going to be a cool piece of content for someone to watch. And the other thing I did with it too was, even though I made it out of slabs. I cut up a bunch of slabs into dimensional material, but I made it out of dimensional material, so someone could make it out of cedar 2x6s and 2x4s if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And I used a domino for the first time for real, which is pretty cool. And speaking of, like, when did we talk about the domino, Mark? It was like 2 weeks ago? 3
Yeah,
weeks
I think
ago?
so. We were talking about buying tools too soon, I think.
So that thing bit me in the butt so many times.
Really?
I think, yeah, because the problem with the domino is you get too comfortable with it, or at least for me, because I've never used it. I got too comfortable with it. I was plunging dominoes. Like, it was when I was doing the ones where you plunge in the face of the workpiece.
Yeah.
3 times in the wrong spot.
Ooh.
So
Now, how'd you do it? Was just mismarked the location, or you didn't line it up properly?
I didn't think about some of the offsets. So I wanted so that was when the rail attaches to the long side supporting rails.
Mm-hmm.
So the position of that rail along that long one was supposed to be dictated by like how far I wanted it from the end of the workpiece. So I was like, okay, I'll set up a fence and I'll put the domino on there. The fence was too short, then it was too long, and then I was like, okay, I haven't had that happen to me in a long time where I'm like, I am really pissed off right now.
I need to leave the shop.
I need to get out of here. So that was a bad day, but I recovered. The nice thing about that project is it doesn't really matter what the offsets on the ends really are. I mean, it's really just aesthetics. As long as the mattress still fits in there,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really matter. So I'll say this to all of you fantastic people who listen to this. Probably other people will know this. It is longer on one end than on the other by about an inch and a half.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Throw it away, man. It's not worth it.
Ah,
Well, good thing
Oh,
you're not
man.
charging them for it. Sounds like a piece of crap. Well, I mean, that's the thing with the domino is, we were talking about how the context was basically if you are going to do like the chair that I'm building, but you want to use the domino, that if you've got that domino, you should be able to translate the joinery into domino joinery. And there are things that are very domino specific that you have to think about to make sure that mortise lands exactly where you need it to land. And it's a little bit different than, say, adjusting a router table or a handheld router to do that job. So it's definitely not a brainless activity.
definitely. I think a lot of it came down to when I'm building. Like, if I was going to do it with like an integral Morrison tenon or like through tenon there or something like that, I would have laid it out. Like, I would have been like, here is the line for the side of the mortise. Here's the top of the mortise. Here's the other side. Here's a little squiggle. This is the waist. And then when I line up the router or whatever I used to cut it, it's literally there. I can see this in between the lines. We're good to go.
Yeah.
With this, I was like, oh, no problem. I'll just make myself a little fence thing that's long enough that gives me the offset and just start plunging away.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
that's all right. I learned, I guess. That's all right.
Cool. Bob, I was curious. So you really do get into a lot of different things. And have you done much in the way of traditional, quote unquote, traditional woodworking joinery in your work? And if not, do you sort of aspire to, or is it just, there's really no reason to for the kind of stuff that you're building?
I really haven't, and that comes up a lot because people bring it up. Well, why don't you do it this way, or why don't you do this? And I've kind of learned over the years that like I'm more interested in, I can't say this with certainty because I kind of go back and forth on it, but
Yeah.
generally I'm more interested in the end product than the process to get there. And so a lot of the more complex joinery seems to get in my way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to make it take longer for me to get to that end thing.
Yeah.
And so I
definitely.
think, and I've also recognized a whole lot of impatience in myself. So I don't have the patience for adding in a a mechanic like that makes it take longer, and also don't have the patience for the precision that's necessary for a lot of that stuff.
Right.
Like when I think about doing dovetails the way that you guys do them, that I'm just like, oh, I could do so many other things in that same amount of time.
That one set
know
of
what I mean?
dovetails is its own like microcosm of a project.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And for my personality type, that just gets in the way.
Gotcha.
So, but at the same time, like I said, I waffle on this. On the other end of it, it's something that I have no experience with, and a lot of the fine woodworking stuff would do me a lot of good to know, both from like a practice and patience standpoint, but also just from a practical like making things.
Yeah.
So it is something I kind of aspire to, but it's not real high on the priority list.
Yeah, I could totally relate to the getting in the way thing. I mean, this is why Matt and I often, sort of lament together about our inability to produce things fast enough to keep up with the content production that we'd like to be able to do. But if we want to keep the quality level of the actual, furniture that we're making, we just cannot physically make it happen that fast. It definitely slows you down. It's a ball and chain.
Yeah, for sure.
All
I
right.
love it. It's my favorite.
It's
I pet it. I say, "Hello, ball. I love you so
You
much."
pet the ball, you stroke the chain. Yeah, I know what you're like. All right, so let's get into what's new. We've only got one thing here. I mentioned James King in the past. He made that monster C-clamp that he gave me, and the thing is just a beast. It's awesome. But he is at it again and made a extreme bench vise. So if you guys haven't seen this, you got to check it out. He has a 3-part video series on it, and it's all made with exotics and dovetailed, or I don't know if it's dovetails or finger joints, I can't remember. But he makes this massive, giant bench vise. It's like the coolest thing. It's one of those things where people, I love watching people do this. They're so dedicated to do something I would just go and spend $50 on. That this guy was able to go and make this thing, and it is a work of art. It's absolutely beautiful. So we'll put that link in the show notes for you if you want to check it out. Cool stuff. And let's see, we can move to our kickback here. A couple of voicemail kickbacks to get us started. First one is from Matt Scranton. He's kind of a troublemaker, so you got to watch out for this guy.
Hey guys, Matt Scranton here in Buffalo. Just thought I'd drop you a couple intros that you might want to be able to use for the show now that Matt has really evolved into his different animal forms. Take a listen and enjoy. Peace out.
Okay, so he's got 2 of them. I played these in the office, and Nicole's like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I'm like, this is kind of like, it's an inside joke from Wood Talk that goes back to a live session that I did on the Wood Whisper. So this is fairly deep inside stuff, but I'm going to play him anyway, just in case anyone knows the references.
You're listening to Wood Talk. Now here are 2 guys and a crustacean with crabby personalities. Mark, Shannon, and Matt.
Did you get that one? Do you remember we talked about the crab move and you said, I pinch?
Oh,
So that's what that one is.
yeah, okay.
Jokes that have to be explained are always the best jokes, right? Okay, and here's
Wasn't
his
as involved in them. That's nice.
here's his second one.
You're listening to Wood Talk. Now here are 2 guys and a duck that make a foul combination. Mark,
my-
Shannon, and Matt.
No.
Take it away, boys.
Heyo.
Right? I mean, it's so thanks for that, Matt. Those were terribly unfunny, but we appreciate it.
That's like one my 8-year-old would have come up with.
Right?
No,
Oh, man. Good stuff. Seriously, though, thanks, Matt. We appreciate it. All right. Let me see. Jeremy. Oh, where is that question? Sorry. I get all mixed up here. So Jeremy has a suggestion for a 4th host.
Here. Been listening to all the podcasts from the beginning of time. Great show. Just listened to the latest one with Vince's kickback. All I have to say is I think it's time for a 4th wheel. Vince for the 4th wheel on the podcast. Thanks, bye.
So you remember Vince, the guy who basically gave us a rebuttal about why using the domino is not sort of a hindrance to him in terms of his learning in woodworking? Is really
Yeah, we
well.
just brought that up.
Yeah.
Way to bring it around. This is awesome.
Yeah, so here it is. So let's see who else we have. Daniel. Okay. Sorry. It's getting a little confusing for me in here. We had so many people call in, and the next one here we did Jeremy. Okay, so Matt, why don't you read this next one, because I think the rest are actually voicemails.
Oh,
So the Thor
we're
one.
gonna skip lumber news.
Yeah, well, doy. We don't have the lumber guy here. You want to hear the song just in case?
Oh, we could if we could make Bob do it. You said we gotta make him work, right?
Does Bob have any lumber news for us today?
no, there's lumber.
Yep.
There's lumber.
It's
right
wood.
there.
All right. Go for
All right.
Thor's.
This is from Thor, but not complaining. I heard a listener talking about wearing tool bags in the shop, and I wanted to weigh in. I do wear contractor-style tool bags while in the shop. It must be from my high school and college days working construction. Having an area where tools, where tools, benches, and a tool wall are spread out, I find it much easier to keep spare tools on me. Tape measure, combination square, pencils, side cutters, screwdrivers, etc. I find it annoying when I have to backtrack to find the damn combination square for the 50th time, or when I have to do some quick adjustments to my tools. They aren't the best tools. They aren't the best quality tools I have in my bags, just enough to get by in a pinch. This seems to help me in my flow and be more productive. Thanks, guys.
Very good.
Makes
We
sense.
actually got some voicemail questions here. This one is specifically for Bob from Tim Roach.
Hello, Mark, Matt, and Bob. This is Tim from Virginia, and I've got a question for Bob. Hey, Bob, I liked the video you did a few years back about automating your dust collection system using an Arduino to open and close the blast gates. When you move to your new shop, do you plan on doing the same thing? Maybe upgrading from a 2.5-inch diameter hose system to maybe a 4-inch diameter hose system or larger? I noticed you got a new dust collection in a couple of your later videos now, and I was just curious to see if you were planning to do that. It'd be kind of interesting to see that done on a larger scale. Thanks, guys. Keep up the shenanigans and all the good work.
There you go.
Yeah. I actually stopped using that system quite a while back when I got the bigger dust collector, because it has 4-inch tubes. And I didn't, when I got that, when I rearranged the shop a little bit, so I really didn't need as many gates as I had before. And so I ended up just kind of taking that whole system down. It worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see now that my shop's going to be quite a bit bigger, I could see why it would be beneficial to put something like that back in. But going to 4-inch adds a whole new set of complexities to that. You know, the blast gates become a lot heavier. There's a lot more friction, which means the servos that run those gates have to be a lot heavier. They draw more current.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a larger shop, means further distributed power supplies and wiring. And, you know, there's a bunch of stuff to that gets complicated. So I've got some ideas for the new shop that may make that reasonable, but I don't have any plans to put that back in place yet.
Do you confront, I mean, like, I get this way with even just furniture in the house where I have to design something and I get to a point where it gets so complex and or so expensive that a purchased commercial solution just is like, this makes so much more sense to just go buy this thing instead of me trying to, you know, spend twice as much doing it myself. And I feel like with dust collection blast gates, there are companies who do, you know, these sort of, I don't know if they're completely wireless, but isn't it IVAC, I believe? I think there's a company out there that has these systems that automatically turn on and open up those blast gates. And I would imagine at a certain point, you've got diminishing returns of whether it's even worth your time to design this thing on that scale.
Yeah, I think in that case, like, I would probably end up saying, well, okay, how can I do this entirely differently?
Yeah.
You know, like, instead of just building a thing that's also for purchase, you know, maybe you make a central split where, like, you're actually controlling one valve that channels where the suction's going to a tool rather than putting blast gates at every tool. Something, I don't know.
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
thinking off the top of my head.
Sure.
But, you know, so in that case, I would try to find, like, a different way to do it entirely rather than just caving to my wallet and
Yeah,
going
exactly.
to buy the thing that makes the most sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're a better man than I am. I would just go buy it.
I mean, I might buy it too.
It just depends, right? Okay, so next one is from Daniel. Question about sanding and refinishing.
Hello, Matt, Shannon, and Mark. This is Dan from Boca Raton, Florida. I had a question regarding sanding grits and refinishing. I recently purchased a used TV stand, solid pine TV stand from the thrift store, and I want to refinish it. The finish that's currently on there looks like it may just be a couple coats of polyurethane. It's not something that is super built up. But my question is, do I need to get as aggressive as like an 80 grit sandpaper, or can I start with something maybe 120 or 150 and then work my way through the grits? I'm going to be putting on just a coat of polyurethane, a couple coats of poly, to refinish it, but I just didn't know where I should start with the sandpaper. So any help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks. Always enjoy the show. Have a great day.
What do you think, Matt? Throw it to you first.
I think as long as you can get down past any defects or anything you want to clean up, I mean, I think, not seeing it in front of me, it's kind of hard to say, but if you let's say you start at 120, it's not going fast enough and you need to get down further, just drop down down to 80 and kind of level the surface, get it nice and flat and cleaned up, and then you can kind of sand up from there.
Yeah. I would actually start with a card scraper if you could. If this is old,
Mr. Card Scraper,
you Mr. Hand Tool guy over here, you know. if the finish is really old, a lot of times that stuff is brittle and very easy to just kind of like get it out of the way in 1 or 2 sweeps with a card scraper, and then you don't have to worry about anything but your final finished sanding grits up to 150, 180, 220. So I would start there, and yeah, I don't know, it's just a lot better than going through a bunch of sandpaper.
I'll just go get a wide belt sander, send the whole thing through once.
That's true. You know,
done with it.
Why stop there? Just keep.
We're talking about
keep raising the bar.
Ways of accomplishing things.
Just go buy a CNC machine and clean off just the top layer.
There you go.
Slowly but surely. I think we're onto something.
I can't top that right now. All right, you win.
Okay, so if you want to send us a voicemail, you can do that. Just use your voice memo app and send the file over to woodtalkonline@gmail.com, and we'll play it on the show. Doesn't matter what it is. We'll play anything. We're desperate. Okay. So we got some, just again, being honest here. Okay, so here's our emails. Now, instead of each of us picking an email, because we did have Bob on the show, I wanted to select specific emails that I thought we could all kind of talk a little bit about, and it'd be a little bit more into Bob's wheelhouse. So first question here is from Ashley, and Ashley writes, okay, one other question. I missed another email from Ashley, but is SketchUp for sissies? Love that. That's the impression I got recently when taking a class on CNC for fine furniture making. Instructor said, don't waste your time learning SketchUp, as it's too hard to make usable 3D models for CNC, or I'd imagine 3D prints. What's your experience been? I'm tackling the Rhino CAD learning curve now. What would you recommend to listeners? Now, this I find very interesting because you have two people who probably use SketchUp fairly frequently. It works for our purposes, but we are also not trying to send that information to CNC or any type of 3D modeling, where you have Bob on the other end who probably has a little bit of a better perspective on this. So I'm going to first say, obviously, SketchUp is for sissies because that's what Matt and I use. Aside from that, Bob, I'm curious, do you have any perspective on this? I mean, do you use SketchUp much in your work?
Actually, I have nothing to add to it. I just want to leave it at you guys
at
are
the
sissies.
Okay, good.
That's good.
No, yeah, actually, I was using SketchUp today. I still use SketchUp for any woodworking stuff. And mainly that's because my plan workflow for creating plans is built out of SketchUp. So I can take that model very easily, get it to my designer who's going to render it in Blender and doing all the stuff he does to make the plans. Now, we could easily replace that with something more robust, but there's really no reason to. Like using the power of Fusion 360 to make a 2x4 as a 3D model, it's a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
So I use SketchUp for a lot of the stuff. And granted, the things that I'm designing in SketchUp are way simpler than what you guys are designing. So it's kind of a flipped question there, in that you have a better response for creating fine furniture with SketchUp. Mine is like mostly dimensional stuff, or just a step past that maybe.
Sure.
But as far as using it for 3D printing and CNC, it's totally capable. Every CAD program has essentially the same amount of detail and the same precision to it. It's kind of just how far you want to zoom in. So I think some of the tools are more natural in more modern software like Fusion, or maybe I've never used Rhino, so I don't really know. But I think some of the tools to get the things that you want are easier and faster in those newer applications, but they all essentially do the same thing. So I would expect that anybody that said SketchUp is for sissies in regard to CNC just means that they're more comfortable in something else.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't use, or why you shouldn't use one over the other.
Yeah, and I would imagine if your primary, way of doing the work that you're going to do is CNC, or you need that 3D model, that other pieces of software probably lend themselves a little bit better. But, when you look at what Matt and I do, I don't think there's any reason for us to ever go to software of that's sort of that deeper industry software. SketchUp is what a lot of woodworkers are using. It's like almost universally accepted as a format that we can exchange information as craftspeople. So it makes perfect sense for us to use it. But I could see if you're primarily on CNC, how it could lead to frustration if it's not that easy to convert the information.
Now, there's one other thing there that actually might make sense in that context, why it would be a good argument for Fusion, for instance. Fusion is parametric, so you can set up, like, you can have a long side of a piece that is relative sized to another face somewhere. So if you designed a table that you wanted to be a 4-person or 6-person or 8-person table, you could rescale a dimension of that, and the whole thing would adjust accordingly. Rather than in SketchUp, you kind of have to start from scratch and just remodel your whole thing. So depending on the output that you want, which I guess is the key to all of this, depending on the output that you want, it may make sense to use something like that that's parametric and gives you some variable input that you can kind of adjust as you need to. But
Nice.
Crap. Well, you tell me that. Well, I got to switch. That happens all the time.
it's really handy. I mean, that particular set of instructions that you can control, it's complex. It takes a while to get used to because SketchUp has nothing like that at all that I'm aware of. But once you get used to it, it's really, really powerful. So,
very cool. All right, so next one, Matt, you want to grab that one?
Saint Nixter. Listen to both Making It, I don't know what that is, and Wood Talk. Just kidding. I don't know why I said that.
You're so
That was
mean.
inappropriate.
What a jerk. Disrespectful to our guest.
I would like to facilitate a dialogue about moving, since we all like unsolicited advice.
Yes, we do.
It's a grinning winky face. Bob, any questions or things you would like to publicly bounce off Mark? Mark, any advice or small things forgotten about to publicly pass along to Bob? Selling off tools in current location versus moving them to a new location. At the very least, maybe a floor mat versus carpet square in the shop discussion to include David Petruccio.
Let's get David on the phone here. Let's really hash this out. This is important stuff.
I guess I do have a question about that. So you had, if I remember correctly, you had people come move all of your tools, right?
Yeah.
I remember seeing them packing them in a truck. Now, did you do that was that based on like cost, longevity of your back? What was the the motivation there from doing it yourself?
Well, having moved several times in the past, you get to a point where I kind of see it like the way people are when you buy a home. You get your first home, you're going to get that fixer-upper, right? And you're going to dive into it. You're going to love every minute of changing out baseboards, putting in new flooring, all that stuff. Your second house, you're kind of like, I'm over it. I'm ready to get something that's like ready to go. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, I've done it enough times, and I've had to deal with moving, and the tools don't get any smaller over time, that I've gotten to the point where I'm like, some of these I would actually either risk hurting myself or breaking the tool. I don't actually have the ability to move that in a safe way. So it's so much easier, as a business expense, to just simply get these people out here, get it moved, and then I don't have to think about it. So it was a no-brainer for me at this point. Plus, you're moving cross country to, you got to move a family, and you're no stranger to this. You're doing it right now. You got kids, you got a lot of other things just to get your home moved and to get the family settled. I didn't want the shop to be something that distracted me from making sure my family was situated. So the shop stuff was actually staggered. The house was packed up in pods. We did all of that ourselves. And the guys came to pick up the tools about a week after that. And then I think it was about a 3-week delay from when we moved in that the tools actually arrived in the new space. So I had a good amount of distance between, shop work-related stuff and home-related stuff. But again, the primary thing is just like, I'm over it at this point. I don't want to have to do all that myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I kind of went back and forth on that because I'm about to do that in about 2 weeks, pack up the shop.
Okay.
And I just wasn't really sure the best way to go about it. But then when I look at my shop, I'm like, how could I do this to anybody else but myself? Like, I can't ask anybody to move this.
Yeah, you feel guilty.
Massive stuff. And I mean, the good thing is that, my shop is currently pretty small. And so I hit the limit on what I could fit in there. And, it's not a massive amount of stuff, large stuff. It's a massive amount of small stuff.
Right.
So
what's the
but
heavy?
I'm also the same in that I'm going into my third home now, buying our third home, and I'm still going to be doing a bunch of work on it myself. So.
Yeah.
you can work that out. There
Yeah, sure. What's your heaviest tool that you have in the shop?
Probably the saw stop.
Okay, so you got a full-size table saw to deal with.
Yeah.
That's actually, when I look at all the tools that I had to move, that was one of the more complex ones to figure out. If I were to try to move this myself, what is the strategy for that? It's actually pretty difficult. It's a lot of fun watching four guys do it because it's no problem for them.
This
but
was way easier than I thought.
Yeah. But as far as advice for anyone else, I mean, I've documented my moves so much in the past, and I can't say that the way I do it is the way anyone else should do it. But a lot of this information is out there. But I don't want to get too much into the moving thing because that can almost be a whole show in and of itself on like strategies for moving. But I listened to making it 2 weeks ago. I guess you guys had alluded to the moves that all three of you are going through right now. It sounds like all three of you are actually doing a DIY methodology for the move.
Sounds like it. Yeah. I mean, I don't think David's quite figured his out, but his is in town, so it's easier either way.
Not as bad. Yeah. Very cool. All right. So Bob, you want to grab that next question?
Sure. This is from Nick Carruthers. For Bob, do you envision any projects where you combine 3D printing and fine woodworking? Maybe a Queen Anne table with lightsabers for legs.
Yes.
Making a note, or perhaps 3D print an entire bandsaw mill.
I want to see that one.
Yeah, battle like that.
So, I've been trying lately to come up with ways to incorporate woodworking in general, not necessarily fine woodworking, and 3D printing. And I think I've got a few good ideas. I don't know how it would work into fine woodworking. But most of the ideas that I've come up with lately are about making fixtures, using 3D printing to make really specific fixtures or accessories. Mm-hmm. Like one of the ones I have coming up in a couple weeks is not my idea, but I'm using 3D printing to take the same idea and make it accessible. I believe it's Lee Valley has these little handheld sanding dealies. I don't know what they're called, but they're really small shaped sanding pieces that you wrap sandpaper around, and then you grip the thing and the sandpaper, and it lets you get into small coves and small, angles, whatever. And so I decided, that would be super easy to do with 3D printing, and then you have an endless supply of shapes and sizes and angles and everything that you wanted to make. And so that's something that I think a fine woodworker could easily take advantage of. So maybe not enough reason to buy a 3D printer, but
But if you already have one, making accessories and things for the shop, that could be amazing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fixtures, a lot of we all have like different hose sizes and stuff that you need to connect together. So I've done a couple of making adapters, custom adapters to, go at certain angles, get two different sizes together, rather than having to wait the 2 days on Amazon. You can wait 2 days while your printer spits it. So.
Sure. That's pretty awesome. We did the arcade cabinet when we first moved here. My buddy Brian has a 3D printer, and he was trying to make some knobs with the dragon. It looks like the dragon from Double Dragon, I believe, and one of the symbols for the old Nintendo game. And he wanted his handle for the back of the cabinet door to be one of those little things. So he's like 3D printing a bunch of these, and I got some of the extras here that are just awesome. And I'm like, man, it's just so cool that you could go home, type a few things in, put the material in, and out, pops this awesome looking custom handle. Yeah. Pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah.
All right, next one here is from Chris Salamone. You know him. He's the 4-eye guy. And he says, on a 3-person podium, bronze, silver, gold, of Bobs who are synonymous with making things, where does Bob rank himself as compared to Bob the Builder and Bob Vila?
Those are my only options?
Bobs who make things. He says, I don't give any softball questions.
Sure doesn't. Man.
Ooh, that's tough.
I think I'm going to have to go above Bob the Builder because I have more dexterity and I last longer in the sun because that dude's made of clay. Isn't he clay? Maybe he's not. I don't know. But yeah.
He's CGI these days.
Okay. Yeah. I'm probably a bronze of that stack. I'll take that.
That's an awesome question, Chris. Thank you. Matt, why don't you grab the last one?
You don't want to kick that one around some more? That was pretty funny.
How do you compare yourself to the Bobs?
I don't.
Wasn't it
That's not fair at all.
What was that video on YouTube years ago of the guy who measures things in Bobs?
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
How do you compare to that?
Shown
Bob?
to me a couple of times.
Yeah. Does Bob measure in Bobs? I don't think we want to know.
So we're gonna put that in the show notes, or?
Yes, that will be in the show notes.
All right, this next one's from Paige. Here's a question for the group. Bob is something of a mixed media guru. Mark and Matt, are there any projects you've envisioned but held off on because you lacked a certain skill/capability, or didn't fit your audience? For Bob, it's often like you take on projects that are beyond your skill level or brand new to you? Are there any fine woodworking projects you've considered but avoided due to difficulty?
That is interesting. I would say that, at least for me, if it's outside of my skill set, I probably won't even think of it. So it's very rare that I go, oh, man, I would love to make that, but damn it, I just don't have the skill. You know what I mean? Like, and if I wanted to do something that was a little bit outside the range of what I'm comfortable with, I would probably go learn that thing. I mean, it's kind of easier than it's ever been to learn some skills or get some hints on how to do something new. But I would say the more I think about it, welding is probably something that I would like to learn, but I would like to have that be something in my toolbox that I could rely on if and when I need to, so that I can start to come up with ideas that would, utilize this other medium. But again, things that aren't in my toolbox, it just doesn't come into my mind to make stuff outside of that. Well, I mean, and the thing is, Matt, you actually, I would say you have a wider skill set than I do in terms of media. I mean, look at your friggin', bandsaw mill. Jeez.
Yeah, that again, that kind of goes back to the same, like, I didn't have that skill before, but screw it, I'm going to do it kind of mentality.
Yeah, you got it now.
So, but I think you make a very good point, though. It's like, if you don't have that skill already, you don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you don't even think to, like, incorporate it. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like, when I'm designing a piece of furniture, I rarely, like, I don't know if I had, like, a machine shop, maybe I would machine some cool metal parts to go with the piece of furniture.
Yeah.
But that's not something I do. It's not something that's in my wheelhouse. I don't have the machines here to even practice with that. So I don't even consider, like, I don't have any good examples, but maybe some custom knobs or some custom hardware if you're trying to make, like, a really cool homemade hinge kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can make your own out of brass or stainless or something like that. I don't know what. See, because I don't know. It's
not part of your creative vocabulary. You
How about a tough tenon? Like, if you want to do the wedge,
yeah,
you could do that out of bronze.
That'd be awesome.
I don't know.
But you don't have the skill.
I don't know. Let me think
Well,
about it.
here's one that came up recently that I thought about. And again, not really a project for the site, but it's something that, like, I know this is possible. I just don't even know where to begin to make it happen. So Bob, this is a challenge for you. Help me figure this out. Okay. I've got a dust sentry on my dust collector. So in the bin, it's got this little sensor that tells me when the dust level is high enough, and it has a light hooked up to it. This is Oneida's dust sentry. And the light goes off. So there's no audible alarm. It's simply an on-off thing. When it senses it, light goes on, and it kind of just flickers. What I want is some sort of a Z-Wave kind of not really a contact sensor, but the same thing a contact sensor would do, to simply tell me on and off. In the same sense, it would have to integrate with this thing to let me know whenever that light would go on, I want this Z-Wave thing to go on so that I can trigger a text message using my smart home device. Make that happen for me.
We could make that happen. That actually wouldn't be that hard to do.
It didn't seem like it would be that difficult, because it is kind of like an on-off thing. If you could find something that had that kind of a sensor to detect the on and off, connect via Z-Wave, we'd have something pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think there's actually some people who have talked to me about doing the dust collection thing, where you put an inline sensor in the electrical circuit, so that when voltage is kicked through something,
mm-hmm.
that sets off a trigger, and then you can have the smart home react to that trigger. So you could do basically the same thing, put a voltage detector in line after that sensor before the light, and whenever that's triggered, then your system just reacts to it.
Yes, let's do it. You're not doing anything next week, right?
No, I'm good. I got like a whole summer of nothing planned.
Nothing going on. Oh, awesome. And I think that was actually our last question. So for the $4 patrons and higher, we are going to do an email extra. We're going to talk about workbench paralysis by analysis. And we also, of course, have a weekend show coming up that you guys can look forward to. So we're going to try to bribe Bob to do the weekend show with us. He won't be on the email extra, though. Now, if you want to support the show, you can just go to patreon.com/woodtalk. You could help us out by setting up what is essentially like a recurring donation and helps support us and keeps the show going. And you can also get yourself a Wood Talk t-shirt at twwstore.com. You could look us up in the iTunes store and give us a rating there if you'd like to. And you're not Shannon, Matt. How about you give him the contact info? We're going to get out of here.
Why don't we just call Shannon and have him read it from wherever he is?
Yeah, we can have him call in.
There you go. All right. Questions. Nope, already screwed up. Comments, questions, or topic suggestions. You have several different ways to contact us. Send us a voicemail using your voice memo app at woodtalkonline@gmail.com. You can use our fancy contact form at woodtalkshow.com/contact, or leave us a comment on our website at woodtalkshow.com. You can catch us on Twitter at woodtalkshow as well as on Facebook. And don't forget, this show is made possible through generous support of our listeners. You could be cool too and support the show through Patreon at patreon.com/woodtalk. And don't forget to check us out individually at ILikeToMakeStuff.com, TheWoodWhisperer.com, and Slabbergasted.com.
Hey-o. All right.
Ooh.
Well, thank you, Bob, for being on the show. We really appreciate it. And before we let you go, why don't you just kind of give us a quick rundown of where people can find anything related to your content and the stuff you produce?
Everything is at ILikeToMakeStuff.com.
Excellent.
That's pretty much it.
told you
Except
that,
on
Mark.
Twitter. On Twitter, it's I like to make stuff with one F because they have a character limit.
Right. There
So
you go.
that's weird.
That's
Other than that,
annoying, right?
That's super annoying.
Making It, is that it? You guys have a makingit.com?
Yeah, makingitpodcast.com.
Making a
Yeah.
podcast. Okay. And if you guys
on
haven't
Twitter.
listened to that, it's absolutely fantastic with three serious heavy hitters in our industry that you definitely want to listen to.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we will catch you next time.
See you guys.
Goodbye to you.
Goodbye to you. All right. Very good. Very good. So I'll close down our file here. We'll open up the weekend show. You guys okay with everything in the topic list on the weekend show? We
Didn't
actually,
even look at it.
oddly enough, got a question from someone that kind of is right in the sort of vein of what I was proposing we would talk about anyway.
Oh yeah, cool. And actually, I have some feedback from your last weekend show.
What was our last one?
I'll get you guys with that.
Okay.
Don't remember what I said yesterday.
Yeah,
Let alone
I do not remember anything.
It was on wood movement.
Oh, yes. How thin to go with wood.
That doesn't really help at all.
Oh, you
Yeah,
serious?
it was
That
about
doesn't
woodworking.
even ring a bell yet? Jeez, man. Lay off the Duncan, dude. Too much.
Well, I should probably go there after this. That'd be pretty good.
You know what I've discovered that's really disappointing? And I don't know if it's like as I'm getting older, my stomach just doesn't handle it as well. But if I drink too much Duncan, it goes right through me. What's up with that?
Coffee in general does that to me. But still
Part of your
drink.
cleanse.
I think I drink less when we brew it at home, and I just have to pour it into a cup and go through the whole thing. But if I get like a Dunkin' in a nice little container and I like down it like it's coffee, but I drink less when it's not Dunkin', and I think that's kind of what I need to do. It's
I'm
too
the
good.
other way around. I drink more if I brew it at home because I'm like, I'll just brew another pot when it's empty.
My
I'm the
put-
same way.
Yeah, but the thing is, in the shop, it's like once I start working, I kind of forget that I have coffee, so I just like it's. And that next thing I know, it's lunchtime, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll just have half a cup of coffee today.
Yeah, then you drink your coffee after lunch.
Oh, the after lunch coffee. You're one of those.
Yeah, and then I have one before bed. You know.
Little nightcap,
That's
Great idea.
little caffeine nightcap. Those are the best.
Yeah, every day I do a morning and I do afternoon and I do like 8, 9 o'clock.
All right.
It's crazy.
Okay, I think we're ready to roll. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, so people listening live, we're going to do the weekend show now, and then we'll cut this off and record the email extra secretly without you. All right, here we go.
Welcome to the Wood Talk Weekend Show. It's time to unbutton those pants, crack open a fresh grape soda, and let the soothing sounds of Mark, Shannon, and Matt caress your ear holes.
All right, it is Wood Talk number 390 for June 16th, 2017. It's a weekend show. Don't get it too excited. Matt,
It's the,
Weekend
wait, is it the weekend already?
it is, man. Can you believe
Oh
it?
man. Oh.
Time to let your hair down.
Let me tell you all the cool things that happened so far this week.
It's been a heck of a week, huh?
It's been crazy.
How about all the
right by?
everything that happened in the news and the thing that the president did, right?
Oh man, did you see that thing that happened?
Oh my gosh,
The
it was
thing-
crazy.
the thing? Oh,
Did you hear so and so died?
Another one. We lost
Seriously,
another one.
I know.
did you hear Bob
come in
Feige was
threes.
on Wood Talk this week?
I did hear that. I actually saw that on Twitter. It's kind
Worst
of
show ever.
worst
He totally
Wood Talk
ruined it.
ever. All right, so we do still have our special guest Bob with us here to do our weekend show, and this one I thought. I don't know, I was kind of compelled to do this because now we have 3 dads on the show, and technically Shannon is a dad, but he's a dad of a 4-legged creature. And I wanted to get in a little bit into the parenting side, so this is kind of off topic. But I think I thought it was kind of interesting to compare notes about how we incorporate family and craft and kind of balance these things off of with each other, and also how do we introduce our kids to this stuff? Do we introduce our kids to this stuff, as well as the aspects of running a business? Now, of course, that's a lot more than we're really going to be able to cover in a short weekend show, but we'll do our best to touch on some of these things. Now, to get us kicked off here, I actually have probably one of the cutest voicemails we've ever received from Andrew and Penny, and I thought since we're talking about family and woodworking that this would be fun to play.
Okay, you ready, Penny? Say, I like wood talk.
Well,
that's pretty good. I say, I like Mark Spagnolo. Good job.
That's how I say it.
Matt Cremona.
Nailed it.
Oh, that one was really good.
She got yours.
Now
That's
say,
good.
I like Shannon Rogers.
I like many bodies.
Oh, that was good too. And we love wood. Very good. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh my God,
Super cute.
I want to reach through and grab her little cheeks and squeeze them. Oh my God,
man.
Adorable, right?
That made my day.
Isn't that fantastic? I'm gonna have to cut some of those out and use them as clips. Of course, my name was definitely the least discernible. She really nailed your names. That's awesome.
I have trouble with your name too. To be
Doesn't everybody?
Mark
I took my kid to daycare this morning, and his teacher's like, "How do you pronounce your name?" I'm like, "You just don't. You don't worry about it. It's fine." Smith is what I'm going for. Okay, so we had a question that we're going to let sort of kick this off from Bryce. He says, this one is for Bob, but also Mark and Matt. Do your kids watch your videos? Do they know what you do for work? How do they handle talking about what you do for work with friends and family? Now, Matt, I know your kids are still a little bit young to necessarily address all that, but you think in terms of the future. So, Bob, you want to go first? First of all, do your kids even watch your stuff?
They do, and they ask to watch, like, if I've made anything new today, every day. So
Nice.
they're under the impression the new videos come out every day. Yeah, but I mean, my oldest is 9. I have 9, 8, 6, and 4. So they're all old enough to like enjoy the videos and watch them. And they ask about them all the time. They ask if they can be in them. They ask if we can make, rocket boots and stuff like that. Like, in their mind, there's no reason why we shouldn't make actual rocket boots.
Yeah.
One day. But yeah, when people ask what I do, or if they just tell people, they just say that I make stuff, which is perfect. Like, they don't really seem to get that I make videos, and that's the content is the product.
Business. Yeah.
Yeah, which is great because I like the fact that they see me excited about making stuff rather than making videos. So that's really cool. And I think that translates to them. It's something they can get excited about too, something we can do together. And so that's pretty awesome.
Sure.
Well, it was kind of weird though. One day my daughter came home and she said, "We watched one of your videos at school today." And I'm like, "Oh, did you bring it up on the computer so they could see it?" She was like, "No, my teacher brought it up and we watched it as a class." I'm like, "Whoa,
Wow.
that's weird."
Nice.
Did the teacher know that it was
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how she found it, but yeah, they brought it up and they watched, and then they talked about making things. It was in like some STEM class that they had. So
That's cool.
it was cool. It was
No,
good.
that's awesome. So it's interesting because I noticed the same thing with my son, where if he's explaining to someone what I do, it's not the video side of it. It's not the content side. My dad's a woodworker. My dad makes furniture is how he describes it. So it is interesting. And I don't think I've necessarily trained him to do that, but I don't think he really grasps that video side of it. He's too young to really understand what that actually means. But I find it interesting that your kids too sort of focus on the actual production aspect of my dad makes stuff. That's pretty
Right.
cool.
My understanding, I mean, from talking to them, is that they don't ever actually see me doing the video side of it, right? That's not as tangible for them.
Yeah.
Like, I shoot the projects while they're at school typically, so they don't ever see that. They see the final results. They see
Right.
the thing that's in the living room or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I guess that explains that. I don't know.
That's true. And oddly enough, I don't edit video when the kids are home. I'm usually inside, and I wind up editing during the day while they're at school. So,
Right.
yeah, I guess that does make sense. So here's something touching on this. As they start to understand what's happening with the videos, and this goes for you as well, Matt, as your two little guys start to see Daddy makes videos, he puts them on YouTube, they start to know what YouTube is. Do you ever have
Oh,
concerns?
they already know what YouTube is.
Okay, and it's coming from the guy who, when I said my kids are seeing a bad ad on their Fire TV, says they should be outside playing.
Someone was gonna say.
Always got to be
I
one
want
in
to
the
be
crowd.
first of the party.
So as they sort of get this understanding of the concept of you making content for an audience and the fact that likes and audience reaction is important to you, how do you think you're going to approach that in making sure they have a good, healthy understanding of what is important in life and what's not? Where, like, I want to teach my kids, who gives a crap what anyone else thinks? Like, whatever you want to do, as long as you're a good person and, you know, you're doing what you think is right, you're on the right path. But the three of us have to be concerned about what perfect strangers think about what we do. And we have to gauge our work to some extent, at least, to be successful. We have to do that. So do you ever get concerned? Because I know I do, about whether or not we translate that and pass that concern about other people onto our kids.
I think about that a lot. But at the same time, like, I almost disagree with part of what you said there, in that the three of us have to care about what people think, because I don't think we do. I think it's maybe from a business perspective, it makes the most sense to care about what people think and to move and shift a little bit into what people have said they liked or don't like. Mm-hmm. But I also think the other side of that is that if we don't care so much about what people think, then eventually the people that don't like what we do will fall away, and more people who do like what we do will replace them.
You have a streamlined audience.
Yeah, like you want a dedicated audience more than a large audience, I think. And so I think that happens by doing what you care about rather than doing what other people care about.
Yeah.
So, and you know, when you do that, that's going to show through into everybody around you, your kids included, as to like how you place where you put your time. Is it into doing the things that you care about, or doing to what you think other people are going to enjoy, or whatever? And I'm really big on, with my kids, making sure that they understand that it doesn't matter, like, if somebody at school doesn't like their clothes or doesn't like, my boys all have long hair. They have like long blonde hair, and so they get mistaken for girls a lot. And I've tried to make it really important to them to, like, who cares if somebody thinks you're a girl or somebody says something negative about your hair? Like, that doesn't actually matter.
Right.
And if you can get that kind of stuff, the like personal stuff to them to sink in, then theoretically, you know, strangers on the internet should matter even less.
Right. Yeah. You would hope.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matt?
I don't know, I'm kind of with Bob a little bit on this. I like when I'm producing the videos that I do and the stuff that I make, you know, I'm doing it because I enjoy it. I'm passionate about it. That's the stuff I want to show. I'm going to be showing what I want to show, and the people that actually like me and what I do, they're watching and they're enjoying it. And those are some of the most amazing people that I've been able to meet and be connected with. Mm-hmm. So I think as a parent, it's going to be really interesting for them growing up, because they're going to have this amazing group of people that are kind of surrounding them in a sense, that you know, actually care about them, and you have this amazing network of people that can help you and support you if you need any help or assistance, because there are some amazing people out there, and everyone's just been so friendly and so helpful and so just amazing for us, especially because, like, I started the channel and everything. I kind of brought it along with the whole experience of becoming a parent for the first time and then becoming a parent the second time. And a lot of that, we've shared a lot of our lives, and we've come across some amazing people. Mm-hmm. So, and like, it's not like, I mean, people send us some really nice gifts. So it's not like I don't expect people to send me anything, but the fact that someone would like put some thought into like making us something, or just like, I think they would like this, and they send it to us, and then we're like, this is amazing. These people understand us. They know that we would like these things. There's some really cool story here. And then the best part about it is when you go to like a meetup or something, we actually meet these people in person. That is such an amazing experience, and I just absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah. And I know that going into the future, if I do have my boys with me at those meetups, it's going to be a really great experience for them, because they'll be able to meet all these amazing people that have all these different backgrounds, and they can learn a lot of things about just people in general in the world. So I think we're in a really interesting position.
I took Mateo to a Denver meetup, the last one that we had, and he gets there and he's just like so amazed and excited because everybody knew his name. He's like, everybody knows my name. I can't believe they know my name. I'm like, buddy, you're in it. Like you're on the show, and you're absolutely right. I think there are so many positives that, if we focus on the negatives, then negative stuff is what you're sort of showing them and teaching them. But if you focus on all the positive things, like you're talking about, the community, the sharing of information, the support, shoot, man, I think it was my Rubo workbench. My son was born 7 weeks early, and I was going through one of the toughest times of my life trying to cope with that and support Nicole and trying to just to get through it and make it all happen. And I was in the middle of a Rubo workbench build, and granted, I'm teaching and doing my thing, but what was going through my mind every single day while I was recording that is my son healthy? Is he going to get out of the hospital anytime soon? Like all of those things are going through my head, and I think it translated. And still today, I have trouble watching those videos because I know where my head was at the time. But it's interesting. That is sort of like tattooed on those videos as a permanent thing as I took people through that journey, in a sense, through that journey with me. And you're right, both of your kids and, I think, mine definitely were after I started the Wood Whisperers. So people knew me well before I had children, and now, one of them's 5 years old at this point. So, they really do feel like it's family. So, Bob, have you had experiences with, kids, stuff related to your kids, the content and the community?
Yeah, I mean, I've shown my kids in the videos a little bit, but not a ton. Not really out of any particular... no real reason for it, just kind of the way it worked out. But recently, sorry, my throat is having trouble. Recently, because we're starting to move, we did the first moving trip, and while I was packing the truck, I gave my oldest son my GoPro, and I was like, hey, just tell everybody what we're doing, walk around with it. And he was gone for like 25 minutes, just like showing everything, and I didn't know what he was shooting. And so I had to go through it all and edit it, of course, and everything. But it was really cool to see him like pull off talking to a camera in a comfortable way, never having done it before, never having, I didn't coach him at all. I just said, hey, tell everybody what we're doing and walk off with this thing. And a couple of times he was like, I hope you guys like this. Don't forget to subscribe.
Like, smash that thumbs up button.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like a lot of kids will watch a lot of YouTube, and they will, they hear those tropes that we all have to say. They hear those a lot and they repeat them. My kids don't watch it. They don't have access to YouTube when I'm not there. They don't, have iPads that they get to watch or anything like that. So they're really not inundated with those things, but somehow he picked that up just from watching me. And it's kind of encouraging that I know he's emulating me in that, not in emulating like PewDiePie or some other person that he saw do it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But anyway, from him doing that little video segment and me editing it down, the response to that was amazing. People were just like, he's a natural. It's so cool to see your family, to see like who it is you're bringing up. And, you should start them their own channel so they can talk to kids about moving from their perspective, not from your perspective. I'm like, oh, it's like such great feedback from people. So the community is amazing.
Well, then that actually ties perfectly into the last thing I wanted to ask you guys. Would you encourage or discourage your kids from becoming at, obviously at an appropriate age, with your oversight, but getting involved in a content generation sort of community? Is that something you want to see them do or want to avoid them doing?
I think the appropriate age is the big thing there, because appropriate age from YouTube's perspective is 13. But when I think about, we were talking about the positive and negative feedback from people, negative feedback to a 13-year-old is very different from negative feedback to a 40-year-old guy, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that's an appropriate age for them to be getting the type of feedback that they would get. So when they get older than that, of course, if they want to create content and explain, teach what they're doing or whatever, I think it'd be fantastic. But I don't think the teenage years are the time that should be done for their sake.
Yeah. And I start to think, will they be able to process feedback a little bit differently, being of a digital generation where comments are viewed a little bit differently? I think when I see a comment, it's sort of a growing thing. Like as time goes on, like you said, as a 40-year-old man, these things take a while to sink in a little bit, but I give way too much weight to feedback and comments. And I don't mean to say that in a negative way. It's just there are some comments that don't deserve the weight that I give them. And that is sort of, I think, a carryover from having lived a large portion of my life without things like, thumbs up and comments and likes. So I'm wondering with kids where everything, like every platform seems to have this like, I don't know, sort of detached way to say, oh, I saw this, or, oh, this is pretty cool, I hearted it. Will they apply that same weight to those things as we would? Or will they just let it roll off their back because this is just the way the online world works? We don't have to worry about that stuff. I would hope that they process it differently than we do.
Yeah.
For their own protection. I hope that they do. So, right. Matt, you going to encourage the kids to build their own baby bandsaws or what?
Well, I don't know, because I think Bob has a really good point about the age thing, and again with what Mark said about just who knows where their brains are going to be at that age. And I'm so far from that too. Who knows what's going to happen in the world on the next? Well, if you say 13 is like the bare minimum for YouTube, we're talking a long ways away. We're talking
12 years,
30. That's a ways out. I'll be pretty old. I'll be your age by then.
Oh, you'll be an old man, dude. Old and gray. You'll be getting those gray comments on YouTube.
Oh man, I'm gonna be even more just angry old man style, trashy old man. I don't know. So I've again, it's so far off, but I've thought about it a few times, but I think the way that I'm going to try and bring them into it is to bring them into my content. It's like the same thing I do with Lindsay when I bring her in the shop and do a project together and do video that way. I think it'd be really interesting to do, it's what Tim Sway does with Vance, where he's in the shop, he's kind of letting him explore, and it's his own project. And that's just it really appeals to me because for two reasons. For one, I'm actually out there having the opportunity to share what I know with my son or my other son or both at the same time or whatever. But the other really personal thing for me is that I can look back on that now and, like 5 years after we did that project and they were like 8 or 10 or whatever, and now they're driving around in their cars or whatever, trying to teach this kid how to do this one thing. Our parents probably didn't have that level of memories.
Yeah, to be able to capture it
of their parenting when they were that age. So we're in a really cool generation now where we actually have a documented history of our lives, which is incredible.
I was talking to a guy that did some woodworking YouTube videos a couple of years ago, and he had a good job, like a full-time job that he enjoyed, and he wasn't trying to do the YouTube stuff as a replacement. And I asked him one time, like, what's your motivation here? Like, why are you doing this? If you're busy and you don't need the money, and
right.
And his whole reasoning was like, well, my son is 13 and I'm not going to be around forever, but every time I do one of these projects or I create a thing, it's an infinitely captured moment that he can go back on through the rest of his life and see who I was at this very moment. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't think that hard about it, but that's an excellent answer, so you're totally right.
That is totally true. I mean, Nicole and I are now on 10, almost 11 years of doing this, that if the kids ever want to go back and look, they could see, mom and dad before we were born, while we were born, after we were born, and literally watch us age in these videos, and then watch the kids get older in these videos. I mean, I've got some where I'll go back and I'll get a question on something and have to rewatch a video from 5 years ago. And I'll be like, oh my God, I forgot I put Mateo in this shot. And it's like this great sort of little photo album surprise for me to find that stuff in there. So yeah, really good point. All right. Well, I don't want to take too much of Bob's time. He's got another show to record after this. So thank you so much, Bob, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again.
And Matt, I'm not going to thank you. It's your job to be here. You get paid.
Oh, all right.
But yeah, I guess
in other ways.
I appreciate you showing up. All right. Well, have a great weekend, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
All right. That was cool. Thank you so much, Bob.
Yeah,
appreciate you coming on the show, replacing stinky old Shannon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Real stinky.
So last week you guys were talking about the wood movement, and somebody sent a video of a chevron table with the fixed, the glued down
yes.
chevron table. So right. I was assuming that was my video. I don't know if it was.
It wasn't,
but
it was not.
I made a bench that was pallet pieces milled down so they were nice and square and flat and everything, and then made a chevron glued down to a piece of plywood, and then bordered it with oak. And that was 3 years ago or something, and that thing has not budged.
Oh, really?
It's perfectly in place.
Nice. Okay.
And the wood was probably, I don't know, 1/2 inch to 3/4 after it was milled. I don't know, but anyway, that was kind of like, fighting the rules, and it worked out fine. So.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's good to know. But no, it wasn't yours. I can't remember who the creator was that made it, but it was very similar to that style table. So
cool.
Cool. All right, Bob, we will let you go. We're going to do our email extra. Have a wonderful day.
Awesome.
All right.
Guys.
Thanks, man.
Good
Really
to see you,
appreciate
Bob.
it.
See ya.
All right. So everyone watching live, it's just me and Matt now. Hi.
Bye.
Hi, everybody. Okay. All right. Let me kill the stream.